Whitney Elizabeth Houston was an American singer and actress. Nicknamed The Voice, she is one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with sales of over 200 million records worldwide. Houston has influenced many singers in popular music, and is known for her powerful, soulful vocals and vocal improvisation skills. She is the only artist to have had 7 consecutive #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, from Saving All My Love for You in 1985 to Where Do Broken Hearts Go in 1988. Houston enhanced her popularity upon entering the movie industry. Her recordings and films have generated both great success and controversy. She has received numerous accolades throughout her career and posthumously, including 2 Emmy Awards, 6 Grammy Awards, 16 Billboard Music Awards, and 28 Guinness World Records, as well as induction into the Grammy, Rhythm and Blues Music, and Rock and Roll Halls of Fame. Houston began singing in church as a child and became a background vocalist while in high school. She was one of the first black women to appear on the cover of 17 after becoming a teen model in 1981. With the guidance of Arista Records chairman Clive Davis, Houston signed to the label at age 19. Her first 2 studio albums, Whitney Houston and Whitney, both peaked at #1 on the Billboard 200 and are among the best-selling albums of all time. Houston's 3rd studio album, I'm Your Baby Tonight, yielded 2 Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles, I'm Your Baby Tonight and All the Man That I Need. Houston made her acting debut with the romantic thriller film The Bodyguard, which became the 10th highest-grossing film to that date despite receiving poor reviews for its screenplay and lead performances. She recorded 6 songs for the film's soundtrack, including I Will Always Love You, which won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year and became the best-selling physical single by a woman in music history. The soundtrack for The Bodyguard won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year and remains the best-selling soundtrack album of all time. Houston went on to star in record soundtracks for Waiting to Exhale and The Preacher's Wife. Houston produced the latter's soundtrack, which became the best-selling gospel album of all time. As a film producer, she produced multicultural movies including Cinderella and series including The Princess Diaries and The Cheetah Girls. Houston's first studio album in 8 years, My Love Is Your Love, sold millions and spawned several hit singles, including Heartbreak Hotel, It's Not Right But It's Okay and My Love Is Your Love. Following the success, she renewed her contract with Arista for $100 million, one of the biggest recording deals of all time. However, her personal problems began overshadowing her career. Her 2002 studio album, Just Whitney, received mixed reviews. Her drug use and a tumultuous marriage to singer Bobby Brown received widespread media coverage. After a 6-year break from recording, Houston returned to the top of the Billboard 200 chart with her final studio album, I Look to You. On February 11, 2012, Houston accidentally drowned in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills, with heart disease and cocaine use as contributing factors. News of her death coincided with the 2012 Grammy Awards and was covered internationally. Life and career. 1963–1984, early life, family, and career beginnings. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born on August 9, 1963, in what was then a middle-income neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey. She was the daughter of ex-Army serviceman and Newark City Administrator John Russell Houston Jr. and gospel singer Emily Sissy Houston. Her elder brother Michael is a songwriter and her elder half-brother is former basketball player and singer Gary Garland. Her parents were both African American and she is said to have had Dutch and Native American ancestry. Through her mother, Houston was a first cousin of singers Dionne Warwick and Dee Dee Warwick. Her godmother was Darlene Love and her honorary aunt was Aretha Franklin, whom she met at age 8 or 9 when her mother took her to a recording studio. Houston was raised a Baptist, but was also exposed to the Pentecostal Church. After the 1967 Newark riots, the family moved to a middle-class area in East Orange, New Jersey, when she was 4. Her parents later divorced. At age 11, Houston began performing as a soloist in the junior gospel choir at the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, where she also learned to play the piano. Her first solo performance in the church was "Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah." While Houston was still in school, her mother, Sissy, continued to teach her how to sing. Sissy was a member of the group The Sweet Inspirations, which also opened for and sang backup for Elvis Presley. Houston spent some of her teens touring nightclubs where Sissy was performing, and she would occasionally get on stage and perform with her. Houston was also exposed to the music of Chaka Khan, Gladys Knight, and Roberta Flack, most of whom would have an influence on her as a singer and performer. In 1977, aged 14, she became a backup singer on the Michael Zager Band's single "Life's a Party." When she was around 16, Houston sang background vocals for Chaka Khan and Lou Rawls on their 1980 albums, Naughty and Shades of Blue, respectively. Houston attended Mount St. Dominic Academy, a Catholic girls' high school in Caldwell, New Jersey. She graduated in 1981. During her teens, Houston met Robin Crawford, who she described as the sister she never had. Crawford went on to become Houston's best friend, roommate, and executive assistant. After Houston rose to stardom, she and Crawford were rumored to be lovers, which they both denied in 1987. In 2019, several years after Houston's death, Crawford stated that their early relationship had included sexual activity, but that Houston ended this for fear of others' reactions. In the early 1980s, Houston began working as a fashion model after a photographer saw her at Carnegie Hall singing with her mother. She became one of the first women of color to appear on the cover of Seventeen. She appeared in Glamour, Cosmopolitan and Young Miss, and appeared in a Canada Dry soft drink TV commercial. Her looks and girl next door charm made her one of the most sought-after teen models. In 1982, under the suggestion of longtime friend Valerie Simpson, Houston signed with Terra Productions and hired Daniel Gittleman, Seymour Flicks, and Gene Harvey as her managers. With them, Houston furthered her recording career by working with producers Michael Beinhorn, Bill Laswell, and Martin Beasy on an album they were spearheading called One Down, which was credited to the group Material. For that project, she contributed the ballad Memories, a cover of a song by Hugh Hopper of Soft Machine. Robert Christgau of The Village Voice called her contribution one of the most gorgeous ballads you've ever heard. She also appeared as a lead vocalist on one track on a Paul Jabara album, entitled Paul Jabara and Friends, released by Columbia Records in 1983. In 1983, Gary Griffith, an A&R representative from Arista Records, saw Houston performing with her mother in a New York nightclub. He convinced Arista's head Clive Davis to make time to see her perform. Davis was impressed and immediately offered a worldwide record deal, which Houston eventually signed after being alternatively sought after by another label. Later that year, Houston made her national television debut alongside Davis on The Merv Griffin Show. She performed Home, a song from the musical The Wiz. Houston did not begin work on an album immediately. The label wanted to make sure no other label signed her away, and Davis wanted to ensure he had the right material and producers for her debut album. Some producers passed on the project because of prior commitments. Houston first recorded a duet with Teddy Pendergrass, Hold Me, which appeared on his gold album, Love Language. The single was released in 1984 and gave Houston her first taste of success, becoming a top 5 R&B hit. It would also appear on her debut album in 1985. 1985–1986, I Whitney Houston / and rise to international prominence. None. 1987–1991, I I'm your baby tonight I and the Star-Spangled Banner. None. 1992-1994, Marriage, Motherhood, and I the Bodyguard I. None. 1995-1997, I Waiting to Exhale I the Preacher's Wife I and I Cinderella I. None. 1998-2000, I My Love Is Your Love I and I Whitney, The Greatest Hits I. None. 2000-2005, I Just Whitney I and Personal Struggles. None. 2009-2012, Return and I Look to You I. None. Death and Funeral. Houston reportedly appeared disheveled and erratic in the days before her death. On February 9, 2012, Houston visited singers Brandy Norwood and Monica, together with Clive Davis, at their rehearsals for Davis's pre-Grammy Awards party at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills. That same day, she made her last public performance when she joined Kelly Price on stage in Hollywood, California, and sang Jesus Loves Me. 2 days later, on February 11, Houston was found unconscious in Suite 434 at the Beverly Hilton, submerged in the bathtub. Beverly Hills paramedics arrived about 3:30 p.m., found Houston unresponsive, and performed CPR. Houston was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. PST. The cause of death was not immediately known. Local police said there were no obvious signs of criminal intent. An invitation-only memorial service was held for Houston on February 18, 2012, at the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey. The service was scheduled for 2 hours, but lasted 4. Among those who performed at the funeral were Stevie Wonder, Cease Winans, Alicia Keys, Kim Burrell and R. Kelly. The performances were interspersed with hymns by the church choir and remarks by Clive Davis, Houston's record producer, Kevin Costner, Ricky Minor, her music director, her cousin, Dionne Warwick, and Ray Watson, her security guard for the past 11 years. Aretha Franklin was listed on the program and was expected to sing, but was unable to attend the service. Bobby Brown departed shortly after the service began. Houston was buried on February 19, 2012, in Fairview Cemetery, in Westfield, New Jersey, next to her father, John Russell Houston, who had died in 2003. On March 22, 2012, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office reported that Houston's death was caused by drowning and the effects of atherosclerotic heart disease and cocaine use. The office said the amount of cocaine found in Houston's body indicated that she used the substance shortly before her death. Toxicology results revealed additional drugs in her system: diphenhydramine, alprazolam, cannabis, and cyclobenzaprine. The manner of death was listed as an accident. Reaction. Pre-Grammy party. Further reaction and tributes. Posthumous sales. According to representatives from Houston record label, Houston sold 3.7 million albums and 4.3 million singles worldwide in the first 10 months of the year she died. With just 24 hours passing between news of Houston's death and Nielsen SoundScan tabulating the weekly album charts, Whitney, The Greatest Hits climbed into the top 10 with 64,000 copies sold. It was a 10,419% gain compared to the previous week. 43 of the top 100 most downloaded tracks on iTunes were Houston songs, including I Will Always Love You from The Bodyguard at number 1. 2 other Houston classics, I Wanna Dance with Somebody and Greatest Love of All, were in the top 10. As fans of Houston rushed to rediscover the singer's music, single digital track sales of the artist's music rose to more than 887,000 paid song downloads in 24 hours in the US alone. The single I Will Always Love You returned to the Billboard Hot 100 after almost 20 years, peaking at number 3 and becoming a posthumous top 10 single for Houston, the first one since 2001. Two other Houston songs also jumped back on the Hot 100, I Wanna Dance with Somebody at 25 and Greatest Love of All at 36. Her death on February 11 ignited an incredible drive to her YouTube and Vivo pages. She went from 868,000 views in the week prior to her death to 40,200,000 views in the week following her death, a 45-fold increase. On February 29, 2012, Houston became the first and only female act to ever place 3 albums in the top 10 of the U.S. Billboard 200 album chart all at the same time, with Whitney, The Greatest Hits at number 2, The Bodyguard at number 6 and Whitney Houston at number 9. On March 7, 2012, Houston claimed 2 more additional feats on the U.S. Billboard charts. She became the first and only female act to place 9 albums within the top 100. In addition, other Houston albums were also on the U.S. Billboard Top 200 album chart at this time. Houston also became the second female act, after Adele, to place 2 albums in the top 5 of the U.S. Billboard Top 200, with Whitney, The Greatest Hits at number 2 and The Bodyguard at number 5. Posthumous releases. Houston's first posthumous Greatest Hits album, I Will Always Love You, The Best of Whitney Houston, was released on November 13, 2012, by RCA Records. It features the remastered versions of her number 1 hits, an unreleased song titled Never Give Up and a duet version of I Look to You with R. Kelly. The album won 2 NAACP Image Awards for Outstanding Album and Outstanding Song. It was certified gold by the RIAA in 2020. In October 2021, the album was reissued on vinyl and included Houston's first posthumous hit, Higher Love. Since its release, it has spent more than 100 weeks on the Billboard 200, making it one of the longest charting compilations in chart history, the 5th by a woman after Her, Madonna, Carrie Underwood, and Pink. Houston's posthumous live album, Her Greatest Performances, was a US R&B number 1 and received positive reviews by music critics. In 2017, the 25th anniversary reissue of The Bodyguard I Wish You Love, More from The Bodyguard was released by Legacy Recordings. It includes film versions, remixes, and live performances of Houston's Bodyguard songs. In 2019, Houston and Kygo's version of Higher Love was released as a single. The record became a worldwide hit. It peaked at number 2 in the UK singles chart and reached the top 10 in several countries. Higher Love was nominated at the 2020 Billboard Music Awards for Top Dance/Electronic Song of the Year, the 2020 iHeartRadio Music Awards for Dance Song of the Year and Best Remix. It was certified multi-platinum in the United States, Australia, Canada, Poland, and the United Kingdom. The song was also a platinum hit in Denmark, Switzerland, and Belgium. Artistry. Houston possessed a spinto-soprano vocal range, and was referred to as the voice in reference to her vocal talent. John Perrells of the New York Times stated Houston always had a great big voice, a technical marvel from its velvety depths to its ballistic middle register to its ringing and airy heights. In 2008, Rolling Stone ranked Houston among the list 100 greatest singers of all time, stating, "Her voice is a mammoth, coruscating cry. Few vocalists could get away with opening a song with 45 unaccompanied seconds of singing, but Houston's powerhouse version of I Will Always Love You is a tour de force." Matthew Perpetua of Rolling Stone also acknowledged Houston's vocal prowess, enumerating 10 performances, including How Will I Know at the 1986 MTV VMAs and The Star-Spangled Banner at the 1991 Super Bowl. Whitney Houston was blessed with an astonishing vocal range and extraordinary technical skill, but what truly made her a great singer was her ability to connect with a song and drive home its drama and emotion with incredible precision, he stated. She was a brilliant performer and her live shows often eclipsed her studio recordings. According to Newsweek, Houston had a 4-octave range. Alyssa Gardner of the Los Angeles Times in her review for The Preacher's Wife soundtrack highly praised Houston's vocal ability, commenting, "She is first and foremost a pop diva at that, the best one we have. No other female pop star, not Mariah Carey, not Celine Dion, not Barbra Streisand, quite rivals Houston in her exquisite vocal fluidity and purity of tone and her ability to infuse a lyric with mesmerizing melodrama." Singer Faith Evans stated, "Whitney wasn't just a singer with a beautiful voice. She was a true musician. Her voice was an instrument and she knew how to use it. With the same complexity as someone who has mastered the violin or the piano, Whitney mastered the use of her voice. From every run to every crescendo she was in tune with what she could do with her voice, and it's not something simple for a singer, even a very talented one, to achieve. Whitney is the voice because she worked for it. This is someone who was singing backup for her mom when she was 14 years old at nightclubs across the country. This is someone who sang backup for Chaka Khan when she was only 17. She had years and years of honing her craft on stage and in the studio before she ever got signed to a record label. Coming from a family of singers and surrounded by music, she pretty much had a formal education in music, just like someone who might attend a performing arts high school or major in voice in college." John Caramanica of the New York Times commented, "Her voice was clean and strong, with barely any grit, well suited to the songs of love and aspiration. Hers was a voice of triumph and achievement, and it made for any number of stunning, time-stopping vocal performances." Mariah Carey stated, "She has a really rich, strong mid-belt that very few people have. She sounds really good, really strong." While in her review of I Look to You, music critic and Powers of the Los Angeles Times writes, "Stands like monuments upon the landscape of 20th century pop, defining the architecture of their times, sheltering the dreams of millions and inspiring the climbing careers of countless imitators," adding, "When she was at her best, nothing could match her huge, clean, cool mezzo-soprano." Lauren Everett from BBC News magazine commented on melisma used in Houston's recording and its influence. "An early I in Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You takes nearly 6 seconds to sing. In those seconds the former gospel singer turned pop star packs a series of different notes into the single syllable," stated Everett. "The technique is repeated throughout the song, most pronouncedly on every I and U. The vocal technique is called melisma and it has inspired a host of imitators. Other artists may have used it before Houston, but it was her rendition of Dolly Parton's love song that pushed the technique into the mainstream in the 90s. But perhaps what Houston nailed best was moderation." Everett said that in a climate of reality shows ripe with oversinging, it's easy to appreciate Houston's ability to save melisma for just the right moment. Houston's vocal stylings have had a significant impact on the music industry. According to Linda Lister in Divification, the deification of modern female pop stars, she has been called the Queen of Pop for her influence during the 1990s, commercially rivaling Mariah Carey and Celine Dion. Stephen Holden from the New York Times, in his review of Houston's Radio City Music Hall concert on July 20, 1993, praised her attitude as a singer, writing, "Whitney Houston is one of the few contemporary pop stars of whom it might be said, the voice suffices." While almost every performer whose albums sell in the millions calls upon an entertainer's bag of tricks, from telling jokes to dancing to circus pyrotechnics, Ms. Houston would rather just stand there and sing. With regard to her singing style, he added, "Her stylistic trademarks shivery melliesmas that ripple up in the middle of a song, twirling embellishments at the ends of phrases that suggest an almost breathless exhilaration infuse her interpretations with flashes of musical and emotional lightning." Houston struggled with vocal problems in her later years. Gary Katona, a voice coach who began working with Houston in 2005, stated, "When I first started working with her in 2005, she had lost 99.9% of her voice. She could barely speak, let alone sing. Her lifestyle choices had made her almost completely hoarse." After Houston's death, Cadona asserted that Houston's voice reached about 75 to 80% of its former capacity after he had worked with her. However, during the world tour that followed the release of I Look to You, YouTube videos surfaced, showing voice cracking, seemingly unable to hold the notes she was known for. Regarding the musical style, Houston's vocal performances incorporated a wide variety of genres, including R&B, pop, rock, soul, gospel, funk, dance, Latin pop, disco, house, hip-hop soul, New Jack Swing, opera, and Christmas. The lyrical themes in her recordings are mainly about love, social, religious and feminism. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stated, her sound expanded through collaborations with a wide array of artists, including Stevie Wonder, Luther Vandross, Babyface, Missy Elliott, Bobby Brown, and Mariah Carey. While AllMusic commented that Houston was able to handle big adult contemporary ballads, effervescent, stylish dance pop and slick urban contemporary soul with equal dexterity. Legacy. Houston has been regarded as one of the greatest vocalists of all time and a cultural icon. She is also recognized as one of the most influential R&B artists in history. Black female artists, such as Janet Jackson and Anita Baker, were successful in popular music partly because Houston paved the way. Baker commented that because of what Whitney and Sada did, there was an opening for me. For radio stations, black women singers aren't taboo anymore. AllMusic noted her contribution to the success of black artists on the pop scene. The New York Times stated that Houston was a major catalyst for a movement within black music that recognized the continuity of soul, pop, jazz, and gospel vocal traditions. Richard Corliss of Time magazine commented on her initial success breaking various barriers. Of her first album's 10 cuts, 6 were ballads. This chanteuse had to fight for airplay with hard rockers. The young lady had to stand uncowed in the locker room of macho rock. The soul strutter had to seduce a music audience that anointed few black artists with superstardom. She was a phenomenon waiting to happen, a canny tapping of the listener's yen for a return to the musical middle. And because every new star creates her own genre, her success has helped other blacks, other women, other smooth singers find an avid reception in the pop marketplace. Stephen Holden of the New York Times said that Houston revitalized the tradition of strong gospel-oriented pop soul singing. Ann Powers of the Los Angeles Times referred to Houston as a national treasure. John Caramanica, another music critic of the New York Times, called Houston R&B's great modernizer, adding slowly but surely reconciling the ambition and praise of the church with the movements and needs of the body and the glow of the mainstream. He also drew comparisons between Houston's influence and other big names on 1980s pop. She was, alongside Michael Jackson and Madonna, one of the crucial figures to hybridize pop in the 1980s, though her strategy was far less radical than that of her peers. Jackson and Madonna were by turns lascivious and brutish and, crucially, willing to let their production speak more loudly than their voices, an option Ms. Houston never went for. Also, she was less prolific than either of them, achieving most of her renown on the strength of her first 3 solo albums and 1 soundtrack, released from 1985 to 1992. If she was less influential than they were in the years since, it was only because her gift was so rare, so impossible to mimic. Jackson and Madonna built worldviews around their voices. Ms. Houston's voice was the worldview. She was someone more to be admired, like a museum piece, than to be emulated. The Independent's music critic Andy Gill also wrote about Houston's influence on modern R&B and singing competitions, comparing it to Michael Jackson's. Because Whitney, more than any other single artist Michael Jackson included, effectively mapped out the course of modern R&B, setting the bar for standards of soul vocalese and creating the original template for what we now routinely refer to as the soul diva, stated Gill. Jackson was a hugely talented icon, certainly, but he will be as well remembered for his presentational skills, his dazzling dance moves, as for his musical innovations. Whitney, on the other hand, just sang, and the ripples from her voice continue to dominate the pop landscape. Gill said that there are few, if any, Jackson imitators on today's TV talent shows, but every other contestant is a Whitney wannabe, desperately attempting to emulate that wondrous combination of vocal effects, the flowing melisma, the soaring mezzo-soprano confidence, the tremulous fluttering that carried the ends of lines into realms of higher yearning. Similarly, Steve Huey from AllMusic wrote that the shadow of Houston's prodigious technique still looms large over nearly every pop diva and smooth urban soul singer, male or female, in her wake, and spawned a legion of imitators. Rolling Stone stated that Houston redefined the image of a female soul icon and inspired singers ranging from Mariah Carey to Rihanna. The magazine placed her 34th on their 100 Greatest Singers of All Time list. Essence ranked Houston at number 5 on their list of 50 most influential R&B stars of all time, calling her the diva to end all divas. In October 2022, the same magazine ranked Houston at number 1 on its list of the 10 greatest R&B solo artists of all time. Awards and achievements. Houston won numerous accolades, including 2 Emmy Awards, 6 Grammy Awards, 2 Grammy Hall of Fame honors, 14 World Music Awards, 16 Billboard Music Awards, and 22 American Music Awards. Houston holds the record for the most American Music Awards received in a single year by a woman, with 8 wins in 1994. Houston won a record 11 Billboard Music Awards at its 4th ceremony in 1993. She also had the record for the most WMAs won in a single year, winning 5 awards at the 6th World Music Awards in 1994. In 2001, Houston was the first artist to be given a BET Lifetime Achievement Award. Since she received the honor at just the age of 37 at the time, Houston was and remains the youngest artist to receive this. 5 years earlier, in 1996, Houston became the second recipient of the BET Walk of Fame and was, at 32, the youngest to receive that honor. In May 2003, Houston placed at number 3 on VH1's list of 50 Greatest Women of the Video Era. In 2008, Billboard magazine released a list of the Hot 100 all-time top artists to celebrate the U.S. singles chart's 50th anniversary, ranking Houston at number 9. Similarly, she was ranked as one of the top 100 greatest artists of all time by VH1 in September 2010. In November 2010, Billboard released its Top 50 R&B/Hip-Hop Artists of the Past 25 Years list and ranked Houston at number 3, who not only went on to earn 8 number 1 singles on the R&B/Hip-Hop Songs chart, but also landed 5 number 1s on R&B/Hip-Hop albums. Houston's debut album is listed as one of the 500 greatest albums of all time by Rolling Stone magazine and is on Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's definitive 200 list. In 2004, Billboard picked the success of her first release on the charts as one of 110 musical milestones in its history. Houston's entrance into the music industry is considered one of the 25 musical milestones of the last 25 years, according to USA Today in 2007. It stated that she paved the way for Mariah Carey's chart-topping vocal gymnastics. In 2015, she was placed at number 9 by Billboard on the list 35 Greatest R&B Artists of All Time. Houston is one of the best-selling recording artists of all time, with more than 200 million records sold worldwide. She is the top-selling female R&B artist of the 20th century. Houston had also sold more physical singles than any other female solo artist in history. As of 2020, she was ranked as one of the best-selling artists in the United States by the Recording Industry Association of America with 60 million certified albums sold. Houston released 7 studio albums and 2 soundtrack albums, all of which have been certified diamond, multi-platinum, or platinum. She is the first and only black artist to have 3 diamond certified albums. Houston's first 2 albums, as well as her 1992 release The Bodyguard's soundtrack, are among the best-selling albums of all time. The Bodyguard remains the best-selling soundtrack album of all time, with global sales of over 45 million copies. Houston's I Will Always Love You became the best-selling physical single by a female in music history, with sales of over 20 million copies worldwide. Her 1996 soundtrack for The Preacher's Wife is the best-selling gospel album of all time. In 1997, the Franklin School in East Orange, New Jersey was renamed to the Whitney E. Houston Academy School of Creative and Performing Arts. She held an honorary doctorate in humanities from Grambling State University, Louisiana. Houston was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame in 2013. In August 2014, she was inducted into the official Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame in its second class. In October 2019, Houston was announced as a 2020 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominee, one of 9 first-time nominees and 16 total. On January 15, 2020, she was announced as an inductee into the Hall's 2020 class, along with 5 other acts. In March 2020, the Library of Congress announced that Houston's 1992 single I Will Always Love You had been added to its National Recording Registry, a list of oral treasures worthy of preservation due to their cultural, historical, and aesthetic importance in the American soundscape. In October 2020, the music video for I Will Always Love You surpassed 1 billion views on YouTube, making Houston the first solo 20th century artist to have a video reach that milestone. Philanthropy. Houston was a longtime supporter of several charities all around the world. In 1989, she established the Whitney Houston Foundation for Children. It offered medical assistance to sick and homeless children, fought to prevent child abuse, taught children to read, created inner-city parks and playgrounds and granted college scholarships, including one to the Juilliard School. At a 1988 Madison Square Garden concert, Houston earned more over $250,000 for the United Negro College Fund. Houston donated all of the earnings from her 1991 Super Bowl XXV performance of the Star-Spangled Banner sales to Gulf War servicemen and their families. The record label followed suit and she was voted to the American Red Cross Board of Directors as a result. Following the terrorist attacks in 2001, Houston re-released the Star-Spangled Banner to support the New York firefighters' 9/11 Disaster Relief Fund and the New York Fraternal Order of Police. She waived her royalty rights to the song, which reached number 1 on charts in October 2001 and generated more than $1 million. Houston declined to perform in apartheid-era South Africa in the 1980s. Her participation at the 1988 Freedom Fest performance in London grabbed the attention of other musicians and the media. In addition, Houston became an activist for the fight against HIV and AIDS during the first decade of the AIDS epidemic. The Whitney Houston Foundation for Children, in particular, focused on helping children who suffered from HIV/AIDS among other issues. In 1990, Whitney took part in Arista Records' 15th anniversary gala, which was an AIDS benefit, where she sang I Wanna Dance with Somebody, Greatest Love of All and, with cousin Dionne Warwick, That's What Friends Are For. In 1991, Whitney participated in the Reach Out and Touch Someone AIDS vigil at London in September 1991 while she was finishing her historic 10-date residency at London's Wembley Arena. There, she stressed the importance of AIDS research and addressing HIV stigma. Noting of her influence as a gay icon, during the middle of her tour to promote the My Love Is Your Love album in June 1999, Whitney gave a surprise performance at the 13th annual New York City Lesbian and Gay Pride Dance at one of the city's West Side piers. Documentaries and portrayals. Documentaries. Since Houston's sudden death in 2012, her life, career and death have been the subject of many documentaries and specials. A television documentary film entitled Whitney, Can I Be Me aired on Showtime on August 25, 2017. The film was directed by Nick Broomfield. On April 27, 2016, it was announced that Kevin MacDonald would work with the film production team Altitude, producers of the Amy Winehouse documentary film Amy, on a new documentary film based on Houston's life and death. It is the first documentary authorized by Houston's estate. That film, entitled Whitney, premiered at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival and was released internationally in theaters on July 6, 2018. Lifetime released the documentary Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina, Didn't We Almost Have It All in 2021, which the Atlanta Journal-Constitution called, less an expose and more a loving tribute to these two women. Portrayals. In 2015, Lifetime premiered the biographical film Whitney, which mentions that Whitney Houston was named after prominent television actress Whitney Blake, the mother of Meredith Baxter Birney, star of the television series Family Ties. The film was directed by Houston's Waiting to Exhale co-star Angela Bassett and Houston was portrayed by model Yaya da Costa. In April 2020, it was announced that a biopic based on Houston's life, said to be No Holds Barred, titled I Wanna Dance with Somebody, would be produced, with Bohemian Rhapsody screenwriter Anthony McCartan writing the script and director Kasi Lemons at the helm. Clive Davis, the Houston estate and Primary Wave are behind the biopic, with Sony Pictures and TriStar Pictures. On December 15, 2020, it was announced that actress Naomi Ackie had been picked to portray Houston. Each actress listed portrays Houston. Whitney Yaya da Costa, 2015. Bobby Christina Demetria McKinney, 2017. The Bobby Brown Story Gabrielle Dennis, 2018. Selena, the series Shantae Massard, 2021. I Wanna Dance with Somebody Naomi Ackie. Discography. Whitney Houston. Whitney. I'm Your Baby Tonight. My Love Is Your Love. Just Whitney. One Wish, the holiday album. I Look to You. Filmography. The Bodyguard. Waiting to Exhale. The Preacher's Wife. Cinderella. Sparkle. Whitney, Can I Be Me? Whitney. Tours. World Tours. The Greatest Love World Tour. Moment of Truth World Tour. I'm Your Baby Tonight World Tour. The Bodyguard World Tour. My Love Is Your Love World Tour. Nothing But Love World Tour. Whitney Houston Hologram Tour. Regional Tours. U.S. Summer Tour. Feels So Right Tour. Pacific Rim Tour. The European Tour. Soul Divas Tour.